Eating a low carb diet is definitely pretty effective when it comes to achieving a fat loss goal. But even with all of that street credit, there are still really big mistakes that I see people making with a low carb diet that are actually causing them to gain weight. Today, I'm sharing 4 of the biggest low carb diet mistakes that you might be making so that you can actually avoid these and start achieving your fat loss goals. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Kettle and Fire. More on them in a bit. Okay, the first is eating low carb or keto cereals. These are marketed as healthier and keto and low carb and high protein, so it seems like a healthier option, and it seems like it should be something that should be supportive of your fat loss goals. And put simply, that's just not true. Just like the old days of low fat being slapped on every single type of processed food, the same is happening with like low carb and keto. But pretty much all of these low carb and keto cereals are likely still working against your weight loss goals. And that's because they're often combining higher fat with very, very sweet flavor. Even if that flavor isn't actually true sugar, it can still be problematic, especially because these cereals are highly processed foods. So although there's very little or no true sugar, they're still hyper sweet with other type of 0-calorie sweeteners, and combined with that higher fat level that can make you eat so much more than your body actually needs and bypass the natural satiety cues you would normally get when eating a lower carb diet. Okay, the second really big mistake is eating low protein. Now, one of the reasons why low carb is really effective at achieving a fat loss goal is because it is so satiating. Carbohydrates are the least satiating, the least satisfying macronutrient, which means that it's so much easier to eat a lot more of those foods versus fat and protein, which are both very satiating. However, protein is the most satiating macronutrient. It's also the macronutrient that our body needs in order to hold onto muscle mass and prevent our metabolism from dipping down during the fat loss process, which ultimately can help prevent a weight loss plateau. Now, the mistake a lot of people on a low carb diet make is that they just focus on the low carb portion and eat a lot of fat, but don't actually eat the protein. And although fat is satiating, it's not as satiating as protein, and we do need to eat enough protein to support that fat loss goal. So if you aren't eating enough protein on a low carb diet, it is possible to accidentally eat a lot more than your body needs because it's searching for that protein, which of course can either stop or reverse the weight loss process. Which, if you're curious on how much protein you need to eat in a day, I do have a free protein calculator. I'll have it linked down in the description below so you can check it out. I also want to give a thank you to today's sponsor, Kettle and Fire. Kettle and Fire is my all-time favorite bone broth company. I love that they slowly simmer bones from grass-fed cows to make sure that they're pulling out as much collagen as possible. And especially when eating a lower carb diet, we want to make sure that we're eating foods that help to boost our satiety and make us feel full and satisfied. And bone broth is something that can really help with that. Because quality bone broth, like from Kettle and Fire, is really rich in collagen, it can be combined with those other complete sources of protein to really help you feel full and just make you feel really good and satisfied throughout your journey. I love that Kettle and Fire is super convenient because I am a busy mom and business owner and I don't have time to make bone broth. So I love that I can just grab it at the grocery store and have it in my pantry for whenever I need it to add to pretty much any meal, which I add it to things like my soups, my stews, my chilies to make sure I'm getting a boost of quality nutrients as well as collagen. And Kettle and Fire is super generous and they're offering my community 20% off with my code AUTUMNBAITS at checkout. So make sure you stock up, and I'll have the link down in the description below. Okay, the third really big low carb mistake is not reintroducing carbohydrates when it is necessary. Now, not all carbs are bad and not all carbs are bad at certain times of your journey. It's just that carbs are usually the most processed food, which is why they tend to be the most demonized, because it's the processing of those carbohydrates that make it just so dang bad for us and also so dang easy to overconsume. So you can think of things like pastas and flours and cookies and sugar, or like just the absolutely horrible kid snacks, which is pretty much just high fructose corn syrup, all of which these highly processed carbohydrates can lead to issues like weight gain and of course blood sugar control issues. So sticking to a low carb or even a very low carb diet does make sense when you are working toward a fat loss goal or when you're looking to stabilize your blood sugar levels. But avoiding all carbs forever can actually work against your long-term goals. Especially this is the case once you've achieved your goal and if you're exercising, because certain exercises are highly demanding. I talk a lot about strength training on my channel, and that is a very demanding type of exercise. My master's is in sports nutrition, so that does tend to be where my focus can go into. But even if you are just somebody who's going to the gym a couple of times a week and adding in strength training or some other type of resistance training, then it's pretty likely that your body is going to end up performing better once you actually reintroduce certain types of carbohydrates. That is, after you balance your blood sugar and after you've achieved that fat loss goal. This is actually one reason why it's pretty common to see in like the different carnivore communities and whatnot, that some of these very low or zero carb folks will start to reintroduce things like fruit and dairy. And typically with some of these people like Paul Saladino, you'll hear them say that they were just not feeling great when they were sticking to zero carb, especially because of the exercise load that they were under. So for myself, during my postpartum fat loss journey, once I achieved that fat loss goal, I did start to introduce things like lentils and sweet potatoes and beans, and then some medium glycemic load fruits. And it was crazy because after that, I actually experienced another 2-pound fat loss as a result of my body being able to increase muscle mass because my training got even better, which I go through this whole step-by-step process in my body recomposition program. It's actually exactly what I followed during my postpartum weight loss journey. So if you guys want to check it out, I will have it pop up right here somewhere. I'll also have it linked down description below. Okay, the fourth really big mistake is counting carbs versus counting the quality of those carbs. And this is honestly one of the biggest mistakes I see. People often ask me, how many grams of carbs should I be eating a day? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 100? And to be honest, the amount of carbohydrates is so much less important than the type. Because remember, even zero carb foods like those zero carb sweeteners can actually still trick your brain into eating well beyond what your body actually needs. This is why I never focus on the actual amount of carbohydrates. Instead, I focus on the type of carbohydrates. And this is where the glycemic load comes into play. The glycemic load is a measurement of how much a food will spike your blood sugar level. Low glycemic load foods are those that have pretty much a minimal impact on blood sugar. Medium obviously has a medium impact, and then high, of course, has the biggest impact on blood sugar. And the low glycemic load foods are usually going to be those that are higher in fiber, so they're more blood sugar stabilizing. They also tend to be more nutrient dense, so you get more nutrient bang for your carbohydrate buck. They also tend to be lower carbohydrate, but the amount of carbs can really range. And yet the impact it has on the body can be really similar, which I love using this approach instead. And I found it to be so much more successful. It's what I use with my clients. It's what I did for myself as well, because you don't have to track everything you eat, but rather you get to eat until you're satisfied on certain categories of foods and then slowly reintroduce those like medium high glycemic load carbohydrates once you've achieved your goal. Like I said, this is exactly what I did during my whole 20-pound postpartum weight loss journey. So if you want to check out that exact process, the exact tips and strategies that I use, you can find it with this video right here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love the science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.